The day everything shifted wasn't marked by anything dramatic. No storm, no screaming match, no late-night whispering I caught through a door. It was a Tuesday, dry, ordinary, and insultingly quiet. I was driving back from a supplier meeting on the edge of town, thinking about wedding favors of all things. Not because I cared, but because she insisted they be unique and meaningful, and I didn't want to be the guy who just said yes to every decision. I remember passing that bakery she liked and thinking I'd stop and grab one of those pistachio croissants she always stole off my plate. But something pulled me off route. A hesitation. A flicker. I turned left instead of right. I drove to her office. I'd never done that before, not unannounced. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. It just wasn't something I ever felt the urge to do. We had our rhythm, our space. That day, though, something itched under my skin. Something old, like instinct. And I know how stupid this sounds, but I swear it felt like my own body didn't trust her before my brain had caught up. The front lobby was mostly empty. Her firm's one of those mid-sized PR agencies that tries too hard to seem cool, exposed brick walls, neon quotes about ambition, too many beanbags. I asked for her, casually, acting like I was just in the neighborhood. The girl at reception smiled, told me she'd let her know. A few seconds passed. Then her smile wavered. She told me she wasn't at her desk, maybe in a meeting, and suggested I text her. But I could see her screen from where I stood. My fiancé's status was set to available. And I know people forget to change it, I know. But something about the receptionist's shift in tone told me I wasn't the first man to walk in expecting one thing and finding another. I smiled, thanked her, turned around like I was heading out and ducked into the hallway instead. The building's shaped like glass walls on every office. I moved fast, not even sure what I was doing. My steps silent. I passed marketing, then creative, then something labeled client experience. And there she was, sitting, laughing, not across from a desk, but beside one, her shoulder almost touching his. The man. Mid-30s, beard that was just a little too shaped, shirt unbuttoned just low enough to be intentional. Had his hand on a tablet, showing her something. Her hand was on his arm. And not in a friendly way, in a familiar way. They didn't see me, and I didn't barge in. Not yet. I stood just outside their line of sight, listening. His voice low, hers softer. A giggle. She said something about last time, and how it was risky but fun. He leaned in. She didn't pull back. I left. Walked out without saying a word. Got in the car. Sat still. My mind wasn't racing, it was empty. Like it didn't know what file to open. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. I felt like I had walked into a dream someone else was having. Everything looked real, but none of it fit. I drove home slowly like the air had thickened. When I walked into the house, it was filled with boxes of centerpiece samples and fabric swatches. Our wedding playlist was looping in the background, her idea to visualize the mood. I stood there, door still open behind me, staring at the framed photo on the wall. Us in Prague. Her smiling into the wind. Me holding her waist like I believed in something. She walked in 20 minutes later. I watched her in silence as she set down her bag, peeled off her jacket, and greeted me like she hadn't just been whispering with another man. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted wine. I said yes. Because I wasn't ready. Not yet. But something was coming. Something sharp. And when it hit, it would tear straight through every quiet lie she thought she'd buried beneath flower arrangements and wedding registries. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I lay next to her in bed, both of us staring at our own screens, pretending we were just tired. Pretending nothing was off. Her leg brushed against mine a couple times like it always did when she was getting comfortable, but I didn't move. Didn't pull away. Didn't react. I wasn't ready to tip my hand, not until I knew more. Because here's the thing, I wasn't just hurt. I was insulted. Insulted that she thought I was stupid enough to marry her without ever noticing the smell of rot under the perfume. The next morning, I left earlier than usual. Told her I had back-to-back meetings downtown. She smiled, kissed my jaw, said, "Don't forget your lunch," like she was still that same woman I met 5 years ago at that music festival, barefoot in the grass, sipping cider and telling me she'd never date someone in finance. I almost laughed at the memory. Instead, I texted my buddy Logan, who works in IT security. Told him I needed a favor. Discreet. Personal. He didn't ask questions. I didn't offer details. By noon, I had a tool that let me see everything tied to our shared iCloud. Call logs, messages, photos, backups, even deleted ones. I knew it was a line I wasn't supposed to cross, but she crossed one first. I found him in her phone under the name Rena Yoga. Clever. They even scheduled things like fake sessions, meetings labeled self or sound bath. And she always came home from them glowing, calm, a little too pleased with herself. But it wasn't just one conversation. There were dozens. Messages filled with inside jokes, cryptic references to rooms with no clocks, screenshots of Airbnb bookings, photos she'd sent him that she never sent me. Her expressions were different with him, playful, reckless, almost mocking. Not the version of her I knew. And then there was one audio note. Just under 20 seconds. Her voice, low and slow, I still feel it. On my skin. Even when I'm back home and pretending everything's fine. I hate lying, but not enough to stop. Not when it feels like that. You know, I must have listened to it 15 times. That one sentence was more honest than anything Shed said to me in months. And it hit me, she didn't just cheat. She wanted to be someone else. With him, she was. And I was just the part of her life that wore a suit and paid for brunch. That evening, I came home and did what I always did. I played the part. I smiled. I told her I loved her cooking. I listened to her talk about linen colors and how her sister wanted to make a speech but probably shouldn't. And all the while, I watched the way she blinked too slowly, how her laugh curled at the edges when she was hiding something. Then, after dinner, I tried something different. I mentioned Travis. Just casually. Like I'd overheard the name somewhere. She froze, but only for a second. Then smiled and said, "Oh, he's new at the office. Just a junior guy. Barely know him." That was her move. Minimize. Neutralize. Pretend the world was flat and nothing sharp ever existed. I leaned in and said, "Funny? He sounds pretty familiar with your mouth." That was the moment it happened. A flicker. Not of guilt, but offense. Like I had insulted her, not the other way around. She stared at me, eyes narrowing. Said, "Excuse me," in a tone so cold it burned. I repeated it. Slower. Clearer. She stood up, walked to the sink, and didn't say anything for a long time. Just stared out the window like she was composing some speech in her head. Then she turned around and said the most incredible thing I've ever heard. "If you're going to accuse me of something that insane, at least have the guts to admit you went through my phone. Or are you too much of a coward for that too?" No denial. No apology. She jumped straight to offense. Like she was the victim. She walked past me, brushing my shoulder, said she was going for a drive. That I should cool off before we talked like adults. The door slammed behind her. And I just stood there, realizing for the first time in our entire relationship, she didn't love me. She loved the power of being untouchable. She didn't come home that night. No text. No call. No explanation. Just absence, like a final punctuation mark at the end of a sentence I didn't get to read. At first, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe she was playing games. But by 2:13 a.m., when I checked her location and saw she was parked outside an unfamiliar condo building in the West End, every excuse fell flat. I zoomed in on the address, cross-referenced it with old emails she'd forwarded me while planning some team dinner last fall. That's when I saw it, Travis's last name on a forwarded email chain. It was his building. I didn't text her, didn't call. I just sat in the dark with my phone in my hand, wondering when exactly she stopped pretending she was mine. The next morning, she walked in like she'd gone out for milk. No guilt, no slouching. Still dressed in the same jeans and shirt from the night before, with that same necklace I gave her last Christmas, only now it looked out of place, like it belonged on someone else's neck. She didn't look at me when she passed. Didn't explain a thing. She went straight to the bedroom, pulled out the suitcase we were saving for our honeymoon, and started packing. No drama. Just efficient hands folding clothes. I followed her in, leaned against the door, and asked, "So, are we going to talk about last night?" She zipped the bag and replied without turning, "Why? You've already made up your mind, haven't you?" I stepped forward. "Tell me the truth." She finally looked up. And what I saw in her face wasn't regret, it was relief. Like she'd been waiting for this collapse. Like she wanted it. She said you were never supposed to know. That's the part that stings, isn't it? Not the cheating. The fact that you didn't see it coming. I stared at her. You were cheating? And she had the audacity to laugh. A quiet, joyless sound. I was. Whatever helps you sleep. Don't act surprised. You were always so busy planning a future you never bothered to check if I wanted to be in it. That line hit harder than anything else. Because I had asked. I had listened. Every time she said she wanted to build a life together, I believed her. Every time she talked about kids and traveling and late nights dancing in the kitchen, I believed all of it. And now she stood there, rewriting the script like none of it ever mattered. I asked her, voice low, so what now? You just leave? Walk away like nothing ever happened? She sat down on the edge of the bed, pulled off her necklace, dropped it onto the nightstand. No, I'm not walking away like nothing happened. I'm walking away because something did. Something real. Something I don't have with you anymore. That's when I felt it. Not sadness. Not even anger. Disgust. Not just for her, but for myself. For every time I ignored the signs. For every moment I believed in a woman who could stand in front of me and destroy years of love with a shrug. She wheeled her suitcase to the door, paused and said, "Don't tell anyone yet. Let's figure out how we want to spin this." I nearly laughed. Spin this. To her, it was just PR. Just another story to shape, control, polish. Not a broken man. Not a torn engagement. Not a future burned to ash. I didn't respond. I just watched her leave. Again. This time for real. But just as I turned away, thinking it was over, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She forgot it. And on the screen, a message preview lit up the lock screen. Do you think he knows about us yet? Or just Travis? The second man. This wasn't an affair. It was a pattern. And now I had no idea just how deep the rot really went. I stood there, staring at the phone she forgot. Not locked. Not face down. Just there. Open. Vulnerable. Like a confession sitting in the open, daring me to pick it up. I didn't hesitate. I opened the message. Do you think he knows about us yet? Or just Travis? From someone named R. No last name. No photo. Just that single initial. I scrolled up. And what I found made me sit down slowly because the ground under me wasn't solid anymore. The messages went back months. Hidden beneath vague contact names, innocuous scheduling codes buried under a fake productivity app. She thought she was clever. She renamed the thread Receipts. Probably thought she was hilarious. Every message looked like some kind of invoice title. But inside, more of the same poison but a different flavor this time. Or wasn't like Travis. He wasn't charming or flirty. He was strategic. The messages weren't dripping with sweet talk, they were cold, calculated. Meeting times. Code words. Instructions. There was talk of bank transfers. Shared plans. Mentions of me. My schedule. My habits. He leaves early on Wednesdays. That's when I'll come by. He trusts me. He doesn't ask questions anymore. When it's done, I'll delete everything. You'll never be tied to it. My stomach nodded. This wasn't just some secret romance. This was manipulation. Coordination. I found screenshots of emails, my emails. Private work documents, financial plans, even a scanned copy of my ID. And buried deep in one thread, something that stopped everything cold. A photo of my signature on a legal form I never signed. I didn't know what I was looking at first. The heading read, Power of Attorney, Temporary Authorization. I zoomed in. She forged it. She forged my name. I grabbed my laptop, opened a secure drive I kept for emergencies, and began digging through everything I'd saved. Contracts, loan approvals, house papers. I cross-referenced timelines, dates, IPs from when things were signed. Everything matched her location, not mine. And suddenly, things I hadn't even noticed before snapped into focus. A delayed loan approval I never followed up on. An unexpected withdrawal I brushed off as an accounting error. a property inquiry under both our names. She wasn't just lying. She was building something behind my back, using me as the scaffolding. I didn't even realize I was shaking until my glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. How long had this been going on? How many people were in on it? Travis was just the surface-level distraction. A decoy. This wasn't about romance. It was about control. Leverage. Inheritance. Power. She came back an hour later, knocking on the door like she still had keys to my life. I opened it not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed to. She didn't expect the phone in my hand. Didn't expect me to already know. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't throw things. I just said one word, "Who is R?" Her face didn't crumble. It hardened. And she said, "You shouldn't have gone through my stuff." I asked again. She didn't answer. So I stepped closer, held the phone up and said, "Is this why you were marrying me? Not for love. Not for a future. For this." Her expression shifted. Not panic. Not guilt. Annoyance. Like I'd inconvenienced her by figuring it out too early. She whispered, "You were supposed to be useful a little longer." And that was the moment I realized she wasn't confused. She wasn't lost. She wasn't breaking. She was built this way. And I had been living with a stranger in my home. In my bed. In my future. There was nothing left to talk about. So I called Logan. Told him to come over. Bring a drive. Bring a lawyer's contact. Bring everything. Because this wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was a war. And I had just found the opening shot. Logan showed up fast. Too fast, like he'd been expecting this call long before I made it. He didn't ask questions when I handed him the phone. Didn't blink when I told him what I'd found. Her conversations with R, the forged signature, the financial infiltration. He just sat down at my kitchen counter, connected his tools, and got to work. "She's sloppy," he said after 15 minutes. "Thinks she's smart, but she left breadcrumbs everywhere. Like she didn't believe you'd ever look." And that's what twisted the knife even deeper. Not just that she betrayed me, but that she never thought I'd catch her. She believed I was so wrapped up in wedding planning, in loving her, in protecting what we had, that I'd never think to look behind the curtain. But I had. And now I couldn't stop. By the next morning I had everything. Every document. Every transaction. Every chat. Even her location history, every fake yoga class that led her to hotels, condos, or long detours that never made sense until now. Logan compiled it all into a single encrypted folder. Evidence. A full timeline. Names, locations, even one name I recognized from my own office. Or wasn't just someone she was seeing, he was someone I'd shaken hands with. I was staring at a conspiracy that looped around me like a trap I didn't even see being built. I didn't call her. I called her father. We weren't close. He never liked me much, too stiff, too calculating. Always looking at me like I was another business deal. But he respected my position and he damn sure cared about his reputation. I asked for a private meeting. Told him it was urgent and personal. He agreed, confused but curious. When I walked into his office and laid the folder on the table, I didn't say a word at first. Just opened it. Clicked through. Let him read. Watch. Listen. By the time the voice note from her to her played out loud, "I hate lying, but not enough to stop," he was pale. When the fake signature came up, he looked up at me for the first time in 15 minutes and said, "You have to be mistaken." I didn't blink. "She's been using me." This wasn't just cheating. It was calculated. Planned. He tried to defend her at first. Said she's impulsive, passionate, not malicious. That she sometimes gets carried away. So I showed him the part where she talked about him. He'll never see it coming. My father always said to marry someone who keeps the lights on while you build your own future. He went silent. I left without waiting for a reaction. I didn't need him to punish her. I didn't need approval. I needed him to know. I needed someone in her world to see her for what she was. Not the perfect daughter. Not the driven fiancé. But the architect of a slow, deliberate betrayal. When I got home, she was there, waiting, still pretending like control hadn't already slipped through her fingers. "You went to my father?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, defensive. That's low. I stepped past her. Lower than forging my signature? She followed me through the house like she still had authority here. You've always been dramatic, always digging for problems that weren't there. I turned. You stole from me. You manipulated me. And now you want to gaslight your way out of it? She crossed her arms. So what's your plan? Ruin me? Tell everyone I'm some monster? No, I said. I don't have to ruin you. You did that yourself. I'm just going to make sure no one helps you clean it up. She scoffed. You think anyone will believe you over me? I smiled. Then I opened my laptop, connected it to the TV, and pressed play. The room filled with her own voice. Her laugh. Her mocking words. Her plotting. She stood there, frozen, watching herself dismantle our future like it was some joke. And when it ended, I looked at her and said, I already sent it to your father. To my lawyer. To the bank. I revoked everything. Froze the accounts. Changed the locks. You don't live here anymore. Her eyes shifted just slightly. She realized then. The game was over. And she hadn't just lost. She'd been outed. And in that brief, flickering moment, when the silence hung too heavy to breathe, she whispered, you'll regret this. But she was wrong. I'd regret not doing it sooner. She left that day with nothing but her purse and whatever dignity she could still pretend to have. I watched from the window as she backed her car out of the driveway like she still owned the road, like she still believed she could spin this into something soft. But the damage was no longer mine to contain. She didn't realize yet, not fully, that I hadn't just taken her mask off, I had handed it to everyone she ever tried to impress. By the end of that week, I'd moved fast. I met with the lawyer. Logan connected me to sharp guy, no patience for theatrics. He went over the documents, the forged signatures, the messages, and immediately opened a fraud case. We sent formal notices to the bank, flagged the assets, and began reversing the paperwork. She snuck into my life under the guise of helping with the details. She had tried to list herself on a second property I was closing on, had scheduled a transfer of ownership through a third party under a consulting company I was affiliated with. The name was different, but the email domain, it matched one I found buried in her messages. The web was larger than I thought. But her biggest mistake? She left too much in writing. I put together a clean, time-stamped report of everything. Not for the police yet, that was coming, but for one very specific list of people: her father, my parents, her bridesmaids, my groomsmen, our mutual friends, and the entire vendor list for the wedding she was still pretending might be postponed. I didn't just cancel the wedding. I dismantled it. Every vendor got an email from me directly. I explained the cancellation was due to confirmed fraudulent behavior from the bride-to-be. I attached the documentation. I told them to contact my lawyer for any further payment issues. Some responded with shock. One photographer refunded the deposit instantly and added a single line, "You deserve better." But it was her social circle that lit up like wildfire. People messaged me nonstop. Some defending her at first, asking if I was really sure, if I was overreacting. But then the screenshots started circulating. The audio notes. Her words, unfiltered, proud, and poisonous. The truth wasn't just undeniable. It was grotesque. And slowly, the silence around her thickened. Her curated image began to fracture. That Sunday, I got a call from her sister. The one who always looked at me like I was some temporary phase. She sounded tired. Embarrassed. She came here, she said. Crying. Begging me to call you. Said it's all a misunderstanding. That you're twisting things. I didn't respond. She added, but I read the texts, the files. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believed her. Mostly. Her voice cracked when she said, she always wanted more, no matter what she had. A few days later, a mutual friend sent me a video, taken at some downtown lounge. Her and R arguing, visibly tense. He shoved a folder at her. She shoved it back. Public. Messy. Not the smooth operation I imagined them running in secret. They were unraveling. She tried to contact me again. Once through her father's lawyer. Once from a burner number. And once, laughably, by leaving a handwritten letter in my mailbox. No apology. No confession. Just manipulation dressed up as remorse. She wrote, we both made mistakes. I lied, yes, but you weren't present either. You buried yourself in work, in plans, in your need for perfection. I just wanted to feel alive again. Alive. Like being with me was death. I folded the letter, filed it into the archive. It was evidence now, nothing else. By the end of that month, she had nothing left to say. Her father ghosted her. Her friends evaporated. Even her stopped answering her messages, likely realizing the entire plan had scorched beyond repair. And me? I was finally sleeping again. Not because I was over it, but because I was no longer pretending everything was fine. I wasn't dragging around the weight of a woman who had hollowed me out while smiling across the dinner table. She thought she could break me quietly. But all she did was make me louder. The fraud report was officially filed on a rainy Wednesday, which felt fitting. Cold, calculated, deliberate. The lawyer submitted everything we had to the local authorities. It wasn't dramatic. No sirens. No screaming. Just paperwork, digital trails, verified signatures, and timestamped deceit. But when the first official notice reached her, she cracked. Not publicly. Not right away. She called my lawyer first, left a long message begging him to drop it. Said it was a misunderstanding and a personal matter that got blown out of proportion. Claimed I was bitter, obsessed, retaliating because she chose to walk away. Chose to walk away? That line echoed for hours. Then came the email. Not from her, but from a new name. A woman claiming to be her advocate. No firm, no title, no legal affiliation. Just a Gmail account and a PDF file trying to guilt me into retracting the claim. It said, "You've already won. Why continue to destroy her reputation? She's lost everything. Let it go before this gets worse." Before this gets worse? Worse for who? I didn't respond. My lawyer did. Politely. Formally. With a 2-sentence note, "This is now a legal matter. All future contact will be considered an attempt to interfere with an active investigation. Cease communication immediately." We never heard from that email again. But she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, I found her parked outside my building. Sitting in her car, windows up, staring at my door like a ghost trying to remember how to knock. I didn't go outside. I didn't even open the blinds fully. I just stood there, behind the glass, watching her unravel piece by piece. She stayed for 23 minutes. Then she drove away. Later that night, my phone rang. Unknown number. Straight to voicemail. Her voice was soft, rehearsed. "If this is what you need to do to feel like you're in control again, fine. I get it. But at some point, you're going to realize we were both to blame. And I'll be here when you do." That line made me laugh. Out loud. I'll be here when you do. Like this was a story about misunderstanding. Like there was ever a future where I'd look at her and see anything but betrayal. Lies. Opportunism. The next morning, Logan sent me something. It was a bank transaction flag, apparently, or had moved money out of the shell company's account. Quickly. All at once. Likely realizing that every message between them was now under review. But the trail was sloppy. And my legal team was watching. We filed a subpoena request. Quietly. Efficiently. And within a week, it became clear R wasn't just involved. He was the architect. She was his conduit. He was the strategist. The legal smokescreen. The one who encouraged the document forgeries. The fake business filings. The property insertions. The idea wasn't even hers. She was the one who executed it, but he wrote the blueprint. It made me sick. Not because she had a partner in crime, but because she chose to be the pawn and called it power. She chose to betray me piece by piece while believing she was too charming to get caught. And now? Now it was being pulled apart in court. Quietly. Thoroughly. She was under formal review for fraud, conspiracy, and misrepresentation. Civil charges for now. But depending on how deep R's involvement went, criminal filings weren't off the table. I didn't watch the court proceedings directly. My lawyer handled the first wave. I stayed detached, outwardly at least. Inwardly, it took everything in me not to show up and stare her down across the room as every lie she built turned to ash under the weight of her own arrogance. And the irony? The woman who once built her identity around control now had none. Not over me. Not over the narrative. Not over the outcome. Every person she thought would shield her had seen the truth. Every backroom strategy she planned was now evidence. Every word she whispered in secret was now being quoted against her. There's a kind of silence that only happens before public humiliation. A silence not of peace, but of anticipation. Like the air itself is holding its breath, waiting for impact. Her name started making the rounds. Not on TV, not in headlines, this wasn't that kind of scandal. It was worse. It was corporate. Her company found out. Not because I told them. I never needed to. Someone else connected the dots. A compliance officer at her firm flagged an irregularity in her use of work hours. After an internal whistleblower forwarded select screenshots. Anonymously, they launched an internal investigation. Her office persona, so carefully polished and curated, began to fracture. Her team noticed. Her clients noticed. People began canceling meetings, pulling deals, whispering in hallways. Her leadership role was suspended. The partner she bragged about impressing, the one she used to mock me over, personally removed her from 2 accounts. And that's when it happened. Her closest friend, Hannah, the one who was supposed to be her maid of honor, the one who defended her through everything, called me. I nearly didn't answer, but I did, out of curiosity, and because part of me wanted to hear what she had to say. She sounded nervous. I saw the files, she said. No hesitation. I stayed quiet. I didn't believe it at first, she added. But she told me things. Private things. About your accounts. About plans. Then she said something I didn't expect. She offered me a cut. My blood went cold. She said you wouldn't notice. That it would all just move around quietly and we'd be gone before it mattered. She made it sound easy. Victimless. I didn't think she was serious. But you knew, I said. I suspected, she admitted. But I didn't know she forged anything. I didn't know she used your identity. I swear. I let the silence stretch. Then she said the one thing that changed everything. I want to help. I'm willing to testify if it comes to that. Just make sure this stops before she does it to someone else. I didn't thank her. I didn't reassure her. I just said, send me everything you've got. And she did. Voice messages. Screenshots. Email drafts. Even a note Amanda had written outlining a step-by-step for transferring small property shares under the guise of joint investments. It was all there. And in those notes, something new. Something I hadn't seen yet. A reference to a third name, Colin. Not R. Not Travis. Someone else. I stared at the message, feeling my pulse slow. How many others were there? Amanda wasn't cheating. She wasn't even just manipulating. She was practicing. Trying versions of her plan with multiple people. Different timelines. Different covers. She was running simultaneous trials, and I was just the one who made it the furthest down the track. With Hannah's evidence, our legal case transformed overnight. Now we had not only forged documents and financial trails, but witnesses. Verbal confirmation. Even a hand-drawn plan of execution. The next week, Amanda was called into a disciplinary hearing at work. She thought it would be internal. It wasn't. Legal counsel was present. The whistleblower was too. And Hannah? She submitted a statement. Not anonymously. And when Amanda walked in wearing that same arrogant posture she always wore when she thought she had a speech ready, she wasn't met with discomfort. She was met with documentation. I wasn't there. But I got the transcript. And when asked directly if she had ever misrepresented her partner's identity in financial matters, she didn't deny it. She said, that's not the question you should be asking. Cold. Calculated. Like she still believed she could reroute the narrative. But that room didn't blink. They asked the right questions. She was suspended indefinitely pending external investigation. Her company issued a statement about ethics review and partnership evaluations. Her professional network went silent. Invitations were pulled. Profiles were locked. Her name became radioactive. And for the first time since it all started, I felt something strange. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Closure. She built her life on control, and it slipped through her fingers in front of the very people she thought would always defend her. No more pretending. No more spinning. She was alone. It had been weeks since I last saw her. The kind of distance that should have cooled everything down. That should have put a lid on the chaos. But something kept gnawing at me. An itch that didn't leave. A small, quiet gap in the story, something I hadn't filled in yet. Colin. That name Hannah had mentioned once and then tried to walk back. She said it didn't matter. Said it was years ago. Said Amanda used to talk about him when she was drunk, like he was a ghost that never landed. But Hannah was nervous when she said it. and I knew the sound of someone trying to bury something alive. So I dug. It didn't take long. Colin was real. Real enough to have worked with Amanda 2 jobs ago, back when we were still renting a 1-bedroom apartment and dreaming about downtown condos. He was her supervisor. Her mentor, she called him once. Said he taught her how to negotiate like a killer. I'd laughed at the time, thinking she meant it metaphorically. She didn't. I found his LinkedIn. He wasn't in PR anymore. He'd shifted into property management. Quiet job. Low profile. But his company was tied to one of the shell businesses Amanda had tried to wedge into my real estate deal. And then I remembered something. A conversation we'd had last year, late, casual, over wine. She'd asked if I'd ever consider co-signing on a property for a friend. Someone starting out. The market's brutal, she said. It'd be nice to help someone just get their foot in. I said no. I remember that clearly. But somehow, I had co-signed. I went back through the file. There it was. My name. My ID. My signature again. But this time buried under paperwork for a short-term commercial lease in Colin's building. Amanda never said his name. Never mentioned the deal again. I had no idea how she pulled it off until Logan found the clue buried in metadata. The signature was copied digitally from a tax document I scanned and emailed to her when she offered to help organize our files. She built the fraud in layers. Not just one big move. Not one explosive betrayal. She carved it out piece by piece, over years, like a sculptor chipping away at a marble block until the figure inside appeared. I called my lawyer. We added Colin's name to the investigation. Found out the lease had already defaulted, the building had lost value, and the property was now under review for financial misrepresentation. Colin was being audited. He didn't know it yet, but everything he'd signed on with Amanda was soaked in gasoline. And just as we were finalizing the next wave of legal action, Amanda reached out again. This time, not to me. To my mother. She showed up uninvited at her job. Smiling. Civil, polished, like the old Amanda. Said she just wanted closure. That she wanted to apologize. That things had gotten out of hand and she didn't want any more tension between the families. My mom, bless her, listened. Politely. Said nothing. Then she went straight to me. She's unraveling, she told me. You need to end this. Officially. So I did. We filed the final cease and desist. Formal charges now expanded. Colin and Amanda all named. The fraud web was being pulled tight. Amanda's lawyer sent one last desperate counter. A settlement offer. Thinly veiled. Quiet. It read, if your client is willing to drop the charges, Ms. Redacted, is open to compensatory damages and will agree to sign a full non-contact agreement. I told my lawyer to reject it. Not because I wanted more money. Not because I needed revenge. Because she wanted silence. She wanted this to vanish behind a check and a signature. She wanted to slip back into the shadows and start again. But I wouldn't let her. This was the last thing I owed myself. The truth unburied. Let her name come up in every background check. Let every potential employer wonder why someone with her resume walked away from her own wedding and never said why. Let her explain the signatures, the shell companies, the frozen accounts. Let her live inside the truth she tried to rewrite that it's been 7 months. 7 months since I opened her phone and saw the first message that cracked my world open. 7 months since the wedding that never happened, the apartment we never moved into, the life we never built. Some days it still catches up with me. Not the heartbreak, because that faded faster than I expected. But the weight of it all. The reality of what it means to be deceived so thoroughly by someone who knew every part of you. Who used your habits, your patterns, your blind spots against you. Amanda hasn't contacted me again. Not since the final court notice went through. The case is still ongoing, civil litigation moves slowly, but her presence is gone. Entirely. Her number blocked. Her face scrubbed from my phone. Her name no longer spoken in my circles. And yet, sometimes I'll catch myself in the middle of the night wondering how someone becomes like that. Whether it's a flaw born or built. Whether she ever felt guilty or just inconvenienced. Logan still checks in. We've grown closer, strangely. What started as a favor turned into a kind of brotherhood forged in fire. He told me recently that I took a deal to avoid further exposure. Threw Amanda under the bus. testified that the scheme was her initiative, that he was a facilitator, not the mind behind it. I didn't even feel satisfaction, just confirmation. She always needed to be in charge. Even of the destruction. Colin's company folded. Quietly, 2 employees filed suits of their own. He disappeared from LinkedIn. His building is under new ownership. A ghost now. As for Amanda, she's not in the city anymore. I heard from Hannah once, just a quick message saying Amanda had gone west trying to start fresh. That she might be using a different last name. I didn't ask for more. I don't care where she is. Because now I'm here. I kept the house. Got the locks changed, repainted the walls, replaced the furniture. Every trace of her is gone except the quiet lessons stitched into the corners of each room. I sleep better now. I think more clearly. I laugh harder. Because I'm not wasting energy managing someone else's lies or making excuses for the holes in someone else's story. I know people talk. Some still wonder if I overreacted. If I should have forgiven. If I could have salvaged something from the wreckage. But here's what they'll never understand. This wasn't about one betrayal. It was about every moment she chose deceit over truth. Every chance she had to stop and chose instead to push further. She didn't break my heart. She tried to erase me from my own life. And yet here I am. Not broken. Not bitter. Awake. If you're reading this and you've felt that pit in your stomach, seen the signs, heard the whispers, and told yourself it's nothing, don't wait. Trust the unease. Trust the silence between their words. And trust yourself to walk away before they write your name into their blueprint for destruction. You'll hurt. You'll rage. You'll doubt everything. But then you'll get stronger. And one day you'll wake up in a house that's finally quiet. Not because the lies stopped, but because you did. I discovered her secret. The pain nearly swallowed me. But I almost walked away. Next time I'll walk the second I see the first crack. And I won't look back.